Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. Some of you may know that I used to post to multiple platforms, but I've let that fall to the wayside, and I do apologize for that. I'm back to posting on Rumble every day, as well as onto the podcast website, which pushes out to things like Google Play and Apple iTunes Play thingy, bob, not sure, never owned an iPhone. If there's any other platform you can think of that you would like to see me there, mention in the comments, and we'll see where we go from there. Anyways, more importantly than any of my going-ons is the story. So here we go. Into the Pit, written by Perilous Platypus. Confidential, Level 9 Access, Pit Event Number 8193, Emergence. Commentary by Dr. Yaz Cloak, Lead Research Scientist, Pit. I write this with full knowledge that some of the contents may be considered treasonous. Ultimately, my responsibility as a scientist and to my species outweigh personal interest and political affiliation. I may have been asked for a statement, and I rendered one here. I accept the consequences. I begin. Our understanding of the pit is inherently limited by its nature. It may not be interacted with in any way save for organic material. Monitoring the pit produces no results. Attempts to insert inorganic probes results in the immediate annihilation of said object prior to interacting with the event horizon. Given the ramifications of failure to solve for the pit's existence, we naturally move into organic insertions. Initially, with mundane items, plant matter, and so forth. Unfortunately, we were incapable of retrieving said objects following insertion, meaning that we could obtain no additional information beyond the fact that organic matter could seemingly pass through the pit. Speculation abounds at the reasoning for all of this, but circumstances forced an escalation in approach. This took the form of various animals and eventually individuals from our own species. Volunteers, of course, at least at first. In all cases, the inserted objects appeared to successfully navigate transition to the other side of the pit, or at least not be instantaneously annihilated. But in no cases did any of the objects or individuals return. In candor, I did not expect improvements. At 28 lost individuals and 893 attempted organic insertions, without variance, I believe the matter relatively closed. Given the stakes, I believed it worthwhile to continue study, but contingency plans should be pursued, namely relocation. Unsurprisingly, the politics of this proved quite impossible to navigate. Abandoning any civilized world, much less a core world, would have unacceptable consequences to the powers that be. If viewed from a scientific lens, a practical reality, they viewed as an impossible obstacle. And so the insertion effort was expanded, first to non-volunteers, and then to species beyond our own. A number of lesser species have been harvested for this purpose, numbering in the low thousands. As subject species, they were not granted autonomy beyond the required quota. Frankly, I found the entire affair distasteful, given data available to us. While the use of subject species on the matter was infinitely superior to the continued sacrifice of our own individuals, the waste of life on an effort that would likely bear no fruit was inefficient at best and morally questionable at worst. Again, given the data available, there was no reason to expect that this effort would yield any difference in results. I can admit that I was wrong. However, I dearly wish that I had been correct. The consequences of successful contact with the beings beyond the pit had yet to fully manifest, but all indications are that it would be negative. The humans, as these beings are known, have taken umbrage at our creation of the pit, which has a consequence of their own civilization, and have taken further exception to our used and coerced individuals. What follows is a truth and faithful recounting of first contact with humans, told from my perspective. Much of what follows is subject to the highest levels of secrecy, and have not been otherwise recorded. In light of recent events, accurate statements have become paramount importance as we consider how best to counter the threat posed by humanity. My dearest hope is that these individuals find their way to individuals capable of conceiving a proper response. Also, a warning. What follows is a direct neural download, though it contains all of the inherent biases I possess as an individual. I consider myself a rational individual, but these are unparalleled events in an irrational time. Take caution. Our fate is in our hands. Dr. Cloak. The pit continued apace. Our only means of assessing it remained monitoring the rate of expansion, which continued at a steady 0.005% per unit. We had recently been forced to retrofit the housing facility for the fourth time, expanding the available space by another 200%, given the location in the capital city. This continues to create a significant number of secondary impacts as displaced individuals increase without a suitable public explanation. I am thankful that these issues do not settle on my plate, though the pressure to find some means for halting or at least retarding the rate of growth is growing ever higher. Increasingly, I have come to regret my decision to research interdimensionality. The original creation of the pit, which I had no part in, marked a momentous occasion in the field. A surplus of funding issues, and all of us found great meaning in the work being done. I much enjoyed the collaboration and excitement in the early period following the creation. I only wish my ascension to the lead research scientist came on the back of my work, as opposed to the ruination of those who came before me. Now, the pressure was on me. Produce results, or else. I wondered whether I would be happy to be relieved of it all when else came. It had been 4 units since the last group of individuals were inserted, but policy, that envoy was comprised solely of subject species with suitable collateral for the individuals involved to ensure compliance. Typically substantial families. Well, we could not know what transpired beyond the event horizon. Collateral ensured inserted individuals would behave in compliance with their directives. 85 individuals inserted, our largest envoy to date. The size of the group inserted appeared to have no impact on the pit, nor did it have an impact on the outcome. Silence, as always. I was fairly certain that we sent those individuals to their deaths, even if they were not immediately annihilated in the event horizon. Still, insertion of organic material remained the only means of interacting with the pit, and so the policy of insertion continued unabated. The loss of thousands of subject species was viewed as a minor consequence in the grand scheme of the politics involved. Any possibility of halting the expansion of the pit was worth grasping at least as far as the High Council was concerned. The Emperor had yet to weigh in. I assumed the one above is aware, but was being inoculated from the ramifications by the High Council taking on the matter directly. Time dragged on. 10 units was the minimum time between insertions. I dreaded the next envoy, as results have not been forthcoming with lower numbers, and there were no new subject species that may be tested. The size of the envoy would be going up considerably, to 1,000 in a single envoy. I tell myself I'm not responsible, but these decisions are not my own, that I could not change the policy even if I desired it. But I am still the one who oversees it. I am the one who observed, who recorded, who noted the disappearance of another envoy, never to be heard from again. 8 units. An alarm rang. An alarm never rang. The pit was consistent. It did not surprise us even as it consumed us. I rushed into the observation chamber, arriving to a great clatter of activity. Scientists rushed from monitor to monitor, waving hands and poring over instrumentation. To the side, the cultural observer watched with interest, surely passing along the events to the party and the High Council beyond. I offered him a quick nod of acknowledgement, as was prudent even in times of crisis. The cultural observer held no official position, but few things can disrupt one's existence, like an errant word or a misunderstanding. I moved over to the hub where 3 scientists stood. Dr. Litthaus, shift observer, turned to greet me. Her eyes were wide, heat emanating from her nasal glands. Emergence, she said. My pulse hammered, even with alert. I did not expect this word. My mind barely grasped the meaning of it. Reading, as it was, something had come from the pit, at long last. Emergence. I heard it as salvation. Read out. What is the nature? I asked. She swallowed, flushing her eyes. Inorganic, mechanical, electric, sophisticated. Her tone tremored as she listed off the categorizations. The first along those sufficient to stun me further. Inorganic. Something inorganic had returned. Impossible. I amend that to improbable. Purpose? I asked. Unknown, Lit replied. Best estimation is the probe of some variety. We are picking up a number of waves, electromagnetic and otherwise. Show me, Lit shifted, pointing to a number of monitors in succession. The first showing a video feed. A small vehicle appeared just beyond the edge of the pit, which formed a featureless black backdrop blanketed across the rest of the room. The vehicle scooted forward and then unfolded, revealing a number of interior objects that began to animate. Some spun about, while others bounced up and down. Lit showed the correlation between those objects and the appearance of various pulses, pings, and other indicators of a survey being conducted. As I watched, the vehicle slowly reversed, disappearing back into the pit. Lit and I looked from the screen to one another. I could read the questions on her face, knowing they mirrored the ones I held as well. Inorganic, sophisticated, monitoring. Something resided beyond the pit, something that bore no relationship to those we had inserted. Something new. As we debated the best way to interact with the probe, it returned to the pit and disappeared. This created a significant escalation once the cultural observer was made aware of the situation. Those on staff at the time were placed into administrative leave for extended questioning to determine their loyalty to the Emperor for the lapse of judgment. I avoided that particular fate due to being off hours at the time, but I did receive a formal censure. 2 more would result in my removal and placement in an off-world educational facility, something I very much wished to avoid. If the probe reappeared, we would be ready. The opportunity presented itself in a short number of units later. It arrived in a different form, with 3 probes appearing, one of the same make and type as the original one. We could not determine if it was indeed the original one, and 2 others. This time, we were well positioned to ensure the probes would not retract without our permission, an effort the cultural observer oversaw personally, breathing down my neck and glaring with all 4 eyes focused specifically at me. As it turned out, the precaution was unnecessary. The probes remained as they were, with the largest unfolding and presenting a series of information across a number of mechanisms, sight, sound, electromagnetic waves, and so forth. The beings beyond the pit were communicating. Our species was well acquainted with the first contact protocols, and the effort quickly bore fruit. We moved from initial handshake preamble into a sophisticated concepts, eventually arriving at a version of a translator. Only then did the diplomatic message unveil itself. I remember how the cultural observer trembled beside me, quaking with rage, venting heat from every orifice as we read the words. Greetings. We are humanity. This message was crafted as a joint effort by the Pan-Terran Alliance, authorized by the Oversight Council, and transmitted by the Prime Publicarat. It carries the full weight of human will. Over the past time length unknown, you have co-opted one of our transference portals for the purpose of experimentation on unwilling individuals. Of those individuals, there was 63% mortality rate due to the inhospitable environment on Terra 4. Each has been accorded proper rights and placed in stasis until they can be returned to their relations. Of those that survived, we have documented the various inhumane, criminal, and morally bankrupt acts they have endured, both as a part of your experiments and as a subspecies within your political association. Those acts qualify as a crime against sentience within our legal framework and have received due consideration by education bodies. While Pan-Terran Alliance does not speak for all sentience within our reality, it does have an ethical obligation and a technical justification to remedy these matters. We have provided due notification to the Arc Galaxies, but we proceed as the sole arbiters in this matter. We've included a list of demands attached to this message. It details your obligations to cease and desist in the persecution of sentience, a commitment to remedy those already impacted, and an acceptance of human oversight to ensure both the prior items are properly conducted. Compliance will carry its own rewards. We understand that you have an uncontained aperture, and we possess the means to halt its expansion and properly contain it. Given the innocents residing on your planet, we will enact this measure regardless. But the benefits of cooperation are substantial, as the 79 partner species to humanity can attest to. We must warn you about failure to comply. We are aware of your location and possess the means to directly board to your space. If required, we will do so and enact a cleanse of your political order. We will be sending a single representative, though. If this individual is harmed or in any way treated poorly, we will consider this a declaration of war, and we will act accordingly. All individuals were immediately placed into administrative hold by the cultural observer, prevented from leaving and communicating until proper authorities could be summoned. We could only wait. I understood what this meant. Something of this political sensitivity could never be released, and the High Council would take no chances with it. The pit was bad enough, but a threat from a mysterious species beyond it, unfathomable. We would never see our families again. That was if we were lucky. The more likely scenario is that we would see our families in a detention facility right before being processed. The proper authorities arrived in due course. An assortment of high-ranking politicos in their gilded finery and mysterious enforcers in black robes. My skin skidded at the black robes. Every bad story began and ended with them. They assembled before the message, reviewing the contents and debating. On occasion, I or one of my colleagues would tap to answer questions, most focused on a single thread. Who were the humans? Had we contacted them? Were we in coordination with them? Did we remain faithful to the one above? No. 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 Yes, again. No, 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 yes, again. Even the correct answers weren't right. The human arrived before the politicos and enforcers had the situation in hand. I find it hard to describe the moment. I am not a stranger to species different from my own, but so much of the spark has gone out of them. In all of us, I am privileged within the system, but I am still subject to it. All of us. But not the human. The human walked out of the pit. They wore simple clothing with no environmental suit. After emerging, they stood atop a ramp and slowly looked around. Seeing the first contract probe, they knelt down and tapped the device, then stood up, a small mechanical object in the hand. They attached it to their clothing and then spoke. "Hello, I am Ambassador John Lucas, authorized representative of the Pan-Terran Alliance. I have come to pursuant the message sent alongside our contact probe, which I see you have assessed. You are aware of the nature of my arrival and the expectations attended thereto. If I may speak with a representative as authorized to speak on behalf of the one above, I would like to commence discussions on the reorientation of your political order, cessation of hostilities against sentients, and reparations for those impacted." He paused and then continued. "I will be the only representative who will be made available, should discussions prove to be fruitless or if I am in any way—" Jin was cut off by the enforcers. He did not struggle, even as he was placed in shackles. He only said one thing. This burned into my memory. "This is a mistake." Confidential, level 14 access. Bold Eye Outer Systems Observation Post, Event Number 1, Emergence. Neural commentary by Porcus Thar, Varlooker. Warning. This commentary is provided by a subspecies. Bias is expected, and recounted information should be accorded low credibility until authorized individuals have confirmed the contents. Nothing worse than the Bold Eye. That's the truth. Half a life spent staring out at nothing but dark, sitting in a tube in the arse end of the arse end of civilization. Only part about it that's got some redemption to it is the fact that far enough out of the one above, curse his name, ain't got the time or the care to make our lives any more miserable than they already is. Doesn't stop him from squawking, though, do it? After dozens of units, they've all of a sudden got themselves into a proper tizzy, piping every other unit with some nonsense demanding vigilance and the consequences for failing to report. "Report what?" I said, guttering it out into the tube. "Ain't nothing but nothing here," I flapped me flips about, because it has felt good to hear conversation even if it were my own. But damn him if they weren't the worst thing that ever happened to the universe. More than once, I wished I'd been back in my pod's time, just to at least give him a proper toss. Better to lose a life fighting than spend it serving. But now that they got their hooks in, don't they? Got us all turned about and tied down, too scared to put up a flip anyway, but there they say. And here I sit, flapping flips, waiting to report. Report on what? It's goddamn black and empty, just like it's been every unit since I got here. Something strange is happening. The demands for reports are a constant stream now, but now I get the why of it. The black ain't black anymore. Something is going on. Something is out there. I can't do nothing about it but report. Last thing I want to do. I report, then I might get some spaces in here. Maybe even a few enforcers if they went to lock it down. Nothing ever good came from having them involved, that's for sure. Maybe I just sit here. Maybe I just don't say nothing. Ain't something coming out of nothing. I don't see nothing. They don't get to know nothing. They're here. Really them. And it ain't a small bit of them. It's beyond anything I've ever seen or heard of before. Even back in the core worlds. More than anything the one above ever dreamed of, that's for sure. I ain't got the right words to describe it, but I'm going to vamp it at it anyways. Because I want to tell someone, want everyone to know that they're here. The humans. That's what they call themselves. I got it from them direct. They got some way of saying our words, not sure how they got them, but they got them and they say them. It looks like something silly when they see them. They got their own way of putting sounds out and don't match the flips flapping. Which is fine by me. I ain't gonna judge no one for being different. I ain't like the one above. I keep my mind open. What matters is that they came right through the black. They say they made an aperture, which I guess is some sort of hole. Not sure how you can make a hole out of nothing, but they gone and done it, haven't they? None of the bits and bobs in the bolt eye can pick it out, though. All it says is that I can't say. Never seen that before, neither. It's like the bolt eye had been blinded by it, like it's a giant gap in the back. But now it's getting filled, or at least them humans are coming out of it, bringing their ships and stations. They come on out of the hole they made, ships by the dozens, each blanking a big metal box that came floating through. Once it gets far enough away from the hole, the box starts to unravel, coming apart and building itself out. The humans call them domains, say they're there to help, to make it so that we can get out from the one above. I ain't see how yet, but I believe it. I met the head of domain today. She reached out and contacted me like I was someone. Like talking to me was a thing worth doing. Not sure what I make of that. Well, I was glad to get a flap. Sure it's not to be high treason, but I always said I'd fight it if I ever got a shot at it. Here's the back and forth of it. Hello, Farlockatha. I am head of the main Rachel. I understand you've spent some time in contact with our reconnaissance team and our outreach coordinators, she said. The translator does something odd to her voice. I listened to the raw feed once, and she sounds much better there, but the human language is all bubbles and blurbs. I go like Balkis, lady. Barlooker is my designation under the one above. I ain't got any love for it, nor any desire to go by it, that's for sure. I say, letting her know just where I stand on things. She makes a motion with her voice spot, which I gather is something friendly. They show their bits of white and their eyes squint all up. It's an odd thing to show something friendly so public like that, but, like I say, I ain't one to judge. Not too much. Please call me Samantha, or Sam, or H.O.D. Ritual. We have no nobility within humanity. She paused and looked to the side before continuing. I have been told that you have taken great risks on our behalf, that you have not notified the one above of our arrival. While I appreciate the gesture, it concerns us when any of the sentients subject to the one above place themselves in harm's way. However, since the decision is made, we'll extend our protection over you, and those who may come to harm for our decision to assist us. That'll require a detailed recounting of those who may be impacted by your decisions, and where they may be found. We'll provide advanced teams to extract them prior to the upcoming cleanse. Lots of words that didn't mean nothing, at least not in the known sense of them, but I could gather it well. I still didn't get much of a sense of what the humans were about, though I knew well enough that they didn't have no love for the one above. This head of domain seemed like she had answers, so I figured I'd just ask him. What's the meaning of the cleanse, lady? Then I caught myself and amended it. Hod ritual. I can provide an explanation there. We will be conducting an information campaign in the upcoming unknown time units. There is no harm in the early reveal. She tapped a few buttons on the console right in front of her, reviewed the materials, and then looked up. As you know, I am a representative of the Pan-Terran Alliance. We initially came into contact with a species you know as the Thrum, the primary constituents of the one above. This contact came following the development of a failed aperture, which co-opted an existing transference portal within our space. They sent a number of sentient beings, some Thrum, many not, through the portal, which allowed us to gather a sense of the state of the portion of space. The Thrum and their lot are right, expletive deleted. Them white things made a reappearance, yes, well, we are in agreement there, particularly after the hostile treatment of our representative. She shifted her body. They were warned of the consequences, and I am one of those consequences. She waved and a bandage to the side, her little delicate nubs animated about. It is my responsibility to conduct a cleanse in this domain. A cleanse is another term for a political reorientation, which entails the removal of the current power structure, the pacification of any resistance, and the support in implementing a power structure that more equitably administers the needs of the sentients in the space. So, what then? You're going to kill the Thrum, I says. I imagine some of them, yes. It'll largely depend on them. Current analysis suggests this cleanse will require significant effort. The Thrum have built an unsustainable predatory ecosystem on the back of a number of client species. A core tenet of the Pan-Terran Alliance, and the Arc Galaxis generally, is sentient autonomy and self-direction. No sentient species is permitted control over another, even if such control is willingly ceded. There are many reasons for it, but that is a topic for another unknown unit of time. All of this sounded more than good to me until they showed up. I just about resigned myself and all of the pods that came after to being under the one above. Nothing but scrapping below the thrum, living in tubes, staring at the black, just because they said it so. They got a lot of power, ships and the like, last count I heard, over 4,000 worlds strong. They've been in power a long time, and they aren't like to give it up easy, I say, letting her know the truth of it. It's closer to 6,000 worlds. Of course, they have a number of restrictions, limited grasp of wormholes and no miniaturization. Military, while extensive, is quite poorly run in terms of logistics, which will make the defensive campaign difficult. Defending space is always difficult. Then them little white things came again. And then there's the real bit of it. They're playing with unknown reference object, and we're playing with unknown reference object. I frowned at the last bit. So, you're stronger? I asked, trying to get a sense of it. Lots of white bits later. Unfathomably. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholt, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.